do for Sydney not what Sydney can do for Barangaroo. And those enhancements have really got to be in many fields: intellectual, they've got to be in a cultural area, environmental, and as I've said, financial and innovative and technological. So the common vision is the contribution to this 21st century of what Sydney's going to be, Australia's global gateway, innovation and sustainability, and Sydney's lifestyle. Not such a big task, really. I mean, really it's saying, let's make Barangaroo a really iconic part of Australia, with all of Australia's attributes and all of Sydney's attributes. The shortlisted development partners are amongst the most sophisticated and forward-thinking companies in this country and in the world. We have some great balance sheets that are working with us through the process, and we have some very comprehensive bid proposals that have been aggressively evaluated over the last 3-4 months. We expect that the government will soon announce a decision about the next phase of that process. It's vital for Barangaroo's success that Sydney is engaged with Barangaroo and that the development partners become a vital part of that engagement. Some myth busting. I think it's probably important to sort of think about what Barangaroo isn't, as well as what it needs to be. So please allow me a little bit of time here. Firstly, Barangaroo doesn't look like this. This is a very average urban design infill interpretation of the potential volumes of the space. These are indicative building envelopes, they're poorly illustrated, and if this is what Barangaroo becomes, we will have failed. We're looking for excellence in urban design, we're looking for excellence in public space and activity, and we're looking for something which will do and meet all of those other objectives of financial and economic as well. So let's just take a few icons from around the world, some little spaces, and this is, I'm sure many of you will recognise the corner of 59th Street and Broadway, Columbus Circle. This is Time Warner Centre, and this is the inside looking out and describes some of the activity and spaces that we need to create in Barangaroo. It needs to bring something special. It needs bold spaces, it needs subtle spaces, it needs streetscapes, and it needs internals. Still in New York, this is Bryant Park, and 10 years ago this was vacant, but today it is utilised by those city-goers and people who live in the centre of New York in a very, very active way on a 7-day basis, not just weekday lunchtimes. So we need people using Barangaroo, active public spaces. We also need some passive spaces. This is the High Line, the redevelopment of the old disused railway line that goes through New York into new modern spaces. We have a lot of old spaces in Barangaroo that have that opportunity as well. Young people, people who are workers in the Barangaroo area, people who are also who will live there and who will visit it. South Bank in London, some creativity, some innovation, some large lounges in public spaces, some fun. I guess it's not Vancouver. The cruise terminals will relocate. The government's made a commitment to that, to a new space. And we will have a waterfront of Sydney's city to celebrate the relationship between Sydney, its city and its waterfront, but it won't be the long-term cruise terminal. We need to have some mixed residential within the space, not just high-rise, but some other uses to bring mixed income into the space, because Millers Point has always had some mixed income. I guess the next myth is that when we've done Barangaroo, that's not the finish of Sydney. This is not the last bit of Sydney, as some people described it. This is actually the next bit of Sydney's evolving growth. The last bit is that Barangaroo represents not a conflict between the old and the new. In fact, Sydney has so many examples of how the old and the new live together vibrantly, excitingly and specially, and this photograph is probably one of the best ways of sort of showing that, Barangaroo needs to do the same thing. It's really important that Battery Park City's image to New Yorkers and Canary Wharf's image to Londoners is not what we end up with. Neither people of those cities believe that those new development areas are part of New York, or, you know, the story about Canary Wharf is, yeah, it's nice, but it's not London. This Barangaroo needs to be very nice and very attractive. It needs to be culturally part of Sydney, even though the urban form, of course, will be new and different. So what do we have? We have an archipelago of headlands. The former Prime Minister, Paul Keating, is the strongest advocate of returning the headland portion of Barangaroo to a naturalistic headland, and the challenge of delivering that to the infrastructure teams in this country won't be easy either. So it's going to become a natural headland. And the southern area in orange here will be fundamentally a business core, an innovation and financial core, but it'll have residential mixed within it. It'll be mixed use. It'll have education, it'll have retail, and it will have a lot of attractions to the people of Sydney who don't just go there to work or visit workers. And in the centre will be a space still to be defined in detail, an opportunity for something to come to Barangaroo, which is fundamental to make Sydney very successful. So that's the story so far. This is World Youth Day. This is when really Barangaroo suddenly made Sydney people aware of where it was and what it was. 130,000 people here in a one-day event. So just a small example of what this space, thought about properly, developed economically, and what it can do for the people of Sydney, not just for the economy, for the financial services industry. A site of unique potential, a site which really can and must be a great addition to Sydney and the challenge of the 21st century. Thank you very much.